Good afternoon. My name is Chris Adnam with Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm delighted to be joined by Prince Satole this morning, an engineering manager from Jackson Youth. Hello, Prince.
Hello, how are you, Chris?
Yes, I'm not too bad. Thank you. Thank you for giving up your time this afternoon to speak to me. So I guess as my sort of starter for 10 question, please tell me about Jackson Youth and what you do.
Okay, yeah. So Jackson Civil Engineering, we're regional based civil engineering company, contractor. Head office is in Ipswich. We operate, as I say, in the 4 regions, north, south, east. We don't have west as such. It tends to be just the highways, which is Connect Plus. I am engineering manager, and my role involves looking after engineers as a whole within the whole business, the processes around the business regarding engineering or anything to do with engineering in terms of, say, equipment, for example. Be looking at that, what we could be doing to improve how we work for our engineers. And then, as I said, also the development of the engineers themselves. So say getting on from work placements all the way to graduates, and then more senior engineers, looking at what their development path needs to look like.
That sounds really interesting. I apologise for saying Jackson Youth at the start. I was misreading my own notes when I said Jackson Engineering. So apologies for that, and thank you for rolling with me anyway. Yeah. But no, that's fantastic, and it's really interesting, as you say, the team you look after, and I say how you sort of monitor their progress. You know, I've interviewed a lot of people in a lot of professions, and I'm not going to lie, when someone still tells me they're an engineer, I still have questions. If you see what I mean, it's one of those job titles to me that, you know, it can mean a variety of different things. So what types of engineer do you work with, and what are they physically doing on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, I'm a civil engineer, and every other engineer will be a civil engineer, but civil engineering has so many disciplines. So within Jackson's, we've got engineers that are based in our highways regions, so looking after highways, so your road construction, bridges, anything to do with a highway. Yep, they'll be on that. And then you have engineers that work on some of our environmental agency schemes, so EA schemes. So looking at flood defences, especially around, say, built up environments. And then you have coastal engineers again, so they'll be working on coastal works. Again, I think that more or less ties in with, say, some of the EA works. And to a less extent, we'll have some on commercial developments, like, say, not so much house building, but maybe warehouse buildings. Coming up, there's a lot of new distribution centres going on. So with that, some of it could actually incorporate 2 disciplines, like, say, people from the house builder side or the commercial side, and the highways, because obviously you'd be looking at building a road network around those commercial developments. So as I say, it varies depending on the client's needs, really. But for Jackson's, our main clients tend to be the environmental agency and National Highways, as they're now called. Well, they're called Highways England, and that's who we'd work with.
No, that's amazing, and thank you, I say, for that breakdown of say the wide array, as you say, of partners you work with, and the wide array of things that your engineers could be doing. I'll touch a little bit more in a minute about the, how do I put it, the qualifications and that side of required for working as a civil engineer. But okay, what kind of traits do you find that the engineers you sort of work with have as a whole? If you see what I mean, if you take away their sort of their expertise and their qualifications, what core traits do they have that make them good engineers?
I'd say a willingness to learn every day. I mean, with me now, even almost 15 or so years later, still learning. I mean, I'm not at the forefront of projects anymore, but there's always something new that you learn. And communication tends to be a major part of being a very good engineer as well, because you are dealing with different people at any one point. So for someone who's based on site, for example, you could be working with a different set of ground workers, subcontractors, and it's about delivering a clear message to them and goal as to what you want to complete at the end of the day. We do have, people from the client side that you talk to, because obviously as a client, you come on board, you want to see what we're actually building, and that engagement with them, is important. We've got designers that actually work on designing whatever it is that we're building for a client, and where we have challenges with the design maybe not going so well, or even going well at times, there needs to be that feedback from between all these parties going on. So communication is quite key, as I said, and just that willingness to learn, because you never stop. Where you think you know it all, there's something that's coming, especially again in this day and age where digitalization is coming into the industry, and we tend to find where construction has always been seen as one that is slow to adapt, more reactive at times when it comes to things like that. But we find now with some of the younger people or newer generation coming in, because they've been born around digitalization, computers and that. So trying to filter that into the existing sort of workforce at times, just one of those things.
No, brilliant. That's a really good breakdown, and you've touched on it a bit there. I was going to say, you need to have the core skills to communicate and be willing to learn in engineering. Whereas, about to say, I'm assuming you get introduced to new technologies, new engineering techniques, new demands for your clients, all the time. So, as you say, if you can't sort of change and adapt and have that willingness, as I say, there's a risk to be left behind, which, as I say, I guess you can't afford to do in your industry.
Yeah, no, definitely. Things have evolved and are constantly changing. And one of the things I'd point out to, we always talk about COVID. It's the C word, as people put it. But certainly we saw with that some of the changes that we're seeing are actually driven by that, and they are actual positive changes in how we work. I'd highlight, for example, where before we'd have meetings in person in a room all the time, and it involved a lot of traveling and a lot of emails, like even looking at a drawing, you'd have one person looking at a drawing, editing that, putting comments on an email, sending that, and it just took forever. But then the fact that now you could use digital platforms where we have given some of the bigger projects out there, for example, HS2, believe it's in about 4 or 5 different countries where people are working from, but it's a project that's in the UK. And that just goes to show how that change is important, and adaptability, just because of the way things are.
No, fantastic, and that's really interesting. Like, I don't know about HS2, as I say, having so many people working from so many countries, but that's really interesting. You touched on a bit in the last part about sort of maybe sometimes the challenges within the role. I know this is not an easy question for any employer to answer, I know, but like, if you had to talk me through maybe a typical day, and I know there's no such thing as a typical day, but of sort of a civil engineer, and then the challenges they may face and the rewards within the role, what would you sort of summarize that as?
Challenges of a civil engineer on a daily basis. Okay, one lately is like this morning, it was absolutely chucking it down with rain, and then I work for contractors, so we build on site, really. So we don't have remote working. You can't build something remotely. If a road or bridge or flood defense wall needs to be built, it's got to be built out on site. So one of the main challenges, I suppose, is weather. That's always a big challenge for us. When it rains like it has been the last week or couple of weeks now, it tends to dampen the spirit at times, because as engineers we like to see things progress and develop, especially if we're at a contractor's side or background. So when you're not building, it's a bit demotivating. And also when things go wrong, when you've got delays. I mean, recently we've had delays in terms of materials because of supply chain issues and that. So when projects are not actually moving in the direction and speed that you would have liked, that tends to bring a dampener on things really for engineers. Talking about a typical day, it varies. Yes, it sounds like a cliche at times when you say no 2 days are the same. I'm sure every industry says that statement, but no 2 days are the same really in our industry, or as I see it, because yeah, it might look similar in that, yeah, I'm doing the same old task, but it's the same old task, maybe in a different location, or it's how you approach them. But there's always something different on that day, or whilst doing that supposedly similar task. And that's the way I would put it, as in it is just that it looks the same from outside. Yes, okay, maybe at whatever time this is what I'll be doing, but yeah, there you go. For me, if I were to give in my role, my example is I could start off by saying, yeah, started off with the meeting this morning with the contracts director. I've ended up on a call now with yourself. In between, I've been on a health and safety call. I've also attended what is it, a sort of lunch and learn session. And I've also spoken to an engineer who's looking at their professional development. So that's going through. So they're finishing their degree program, so they get the certificate. But then it's now getting the qualification, professional qualification with the Institute of Civil Engineers. So that has its own process. So if you can see the variation, between that, where you go, okay, yeah, engineering manager. So you might ask, where's the engineering come from that? But there's a lot that happens. And then at some point this afternoon, I'll be on a site. So yeah, that's the variety. And I can't put that into tomorrow. Tomorrow's another different day where something different again, but it's just that variety, really.
And I'm assuming that variety must be an attraction of the role.
Yes, it definitely. It's, as I say, the industry is interesting. We do very interesting work, which is very important as well, because without civil engineering and civil engineers, we wouldn't be here at all, because it's all about the infrastructure that we build. Take, for example, if you're traveling anywhere, a civil engineer has had an input into that. The fact that we're talking at the moment, there's been some infrastructure that's been built to probably host the networks that we have. And then also we're in a building, or we're both in buildings, separate locations. But again, that whole building, there's been a civil engineer, in there. It's, so for me, again, it's everything around us requires civil engineers, but we don't actually think about it when we're on it, because we just assume it's there. I mean, there was a discussion I had with some engineers a few months ago, where we met up, and we're sort of saying, imagine we're the day where we stopped all works in civil engineering just for a day, just to see, what would happen, and it's like everything would just stop. And yeah, that's just it. I mean, I'll give an example. Besides the trade strikes that you have at the moment, you take, for example, the Network Rail engineers deciding not to turn up for work for any maintenance works. I mean, yeah, that just wouldn't work, would it? Same thing on our roads network. We go out there, there's some works that are hidden that go on, we don't actually see until we think, oh, okay, yeah, it just looks like they've done a little bit of painting. But it's important work that you're doing, whether it's maintenance or renewals. But yes, again, as I point out, everything that we can think of, a civil engineer has been involved in, and it just goes to show how important it is.
No, that's I can't say I've ever viewed the world that way, but I will never view it the same way. But that's a really interesting way to think about it. As you say, yeah, if there weren't civil engineers out there, as you say, sort of, going through these processes, as you say, yeah, there wouldn't be a lot of roofs overheads, there wouldn't be a lot of infrastructure in place for transport, all kind of things. So no, that's really interesting. And you touched a little bit there as well about sort of the opportunities and the development for young engineers within Jackson. Can you just touch a little bit more on that, maybe say maybe the sort of kind of experiences and exposure that a young engineer coming into the organisation might get?
Okay, so we offer an industrial placement program, which is normally a year long for anyone that has that is in university. So typical bachelor's degree in civil engineering is 3 years, and that's 3 years in the classroom. What we do encourage universities now is to have that as a sandwich program. So they add on a year, so it becomes a 4-year program. So what happens is you have year 1 and year 2 where they're in university, and then for year 3 they come out into industry where they get to experience work on all our sites, and then also not just the sites but the office side of things, the planning that goes on, the tendering that goes on before an actual project hits site for delivery. So that's one area that we're looking at and investing heavily in to support as much as we can. We also have work experience programs where, again, we go out into schools and colleges as part of our STEM program, where we would maybe talk through what the field involves, what we do as a business, and then invite anyone interested to come over for a work experience program. It could be a day or a week. It just depends on what the thing. Again, it's just like a taster of that. And then looking further again from that, we do have a degree apprentices or an apprentice program. Fully funded, again, by the company. I know now everyone talks about rising university fees. There's jury's still out on that. I mean, I've got my reservations. There is no right or wrong way on that, but there's some people that choose to go through an apprenticeship route. So say after they finish their A levels, decide they don't want to go into university, so they apply for a degree apprenticeship route, start off either level 3 or level 6, it depends. So if it's a level 3, it's a 3-year program, and they finish, I think, with it's changed recently, but it finishes, I think, with the foundation degree. And then if they want to go and do a level 6, they finish off with a bachelor's degree. Again, that's all fully funded. Whilst you're doing all of that, you're on full employment, and some of the benefits on that is, I say, full pay that you get, with the day release that you have every week. If you're on the apprenticeship program, you get a company van that you use for all your company mileage or company traveling, all funded. And then all the other benefits that come with someone that works full time, your holidays, everything that comes with that. I mean, that's, again, similar to anyone coming on the sandwich program. So for that whole year, they're also provided with a company van that they use to travel to and from site, and they're on full pay, again, over that whole year, and get all the other benefits that anyone in a full-time role is. Because what we like our trainees or placements to feel is the reality of what work is. So it's not all, simulated. It's what you'll be doing now is literally what you'll be doing when you're full-time in the role. And from there, people just get a real life appreciation of what we do and what potentially they could be doing if they're to stick with us.
No, wow, thanks, Prince. That's a really good breakdown, of the different routes as well into the industry. And I really like the fact that, as you say, you from sort of day one, you want to paint the picture of, this will be what it's like if you have a career with us, straight away. And I love the fact that you have that inclusive element straight away for anyone coming in. My final question really sort of comes in 2 parts, and it's sort of just to sort of round off the conversation, which is, I'm not saying you didn't wake up when you were younger and go, you know what, I want to be an engineering manager, but so the first part of the question is, can you sort of tell us a little bit about your career background and how you came to be where you are now? And the second part of this question will be, based on the experiences you've had and the things you have done, if you could go back and speak to 16, 17-year-old Prince, what one piece of career advice would you give your younger self?
Okay. Career background. I'll start off with the first one. I thought I'd be an architect, so I was always into. I think now they call it design technology. When I was growing up, going to show how old I am now. It's very old. We had what we call technical graphics or technical drawing, and I was really into that. And maths and physics were actually my strengths. And I'd always said to myself, I was going to go into engineering, but what it was it started off as yeah, architect or being a designer. There's a few changes that happened. Yeah, after I finished my A level, I went to work, believe it or not, for DHL for a few years, and yeah, looking at property side of things after I got my degree in computing and business. There was still that something missing. And 5 years into it, I thought, yeah, I'm in the wrong career at the moment. I've always wanted to work within civil engineering. What at the time, I think I was about 25 at the time. I didn't know what it was, 25, 26, I think. I didn't know what it was. And so I went to further my studies in civil engineering, came out of it, started working for a house builder who had a variety of works on there. And yeah, started off house builder, looking at building houses. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then went into utilities. From utilities, built that up into highways and roads. And that's where I think I actually blossomed the most and spent about majority of my working life as an engineer in, and then just rose up the ranks up to where I was a senior engineer and then an interim project manager, until then got made up into a engineering manager. The role of engineering manager came about the passion I have for seeing not just young but new people coming into the industry as well, because as I said, it's a fantastic industry. It doesn't get talked about a lot, because I mean, some of it has to do with the negative publicity, but I think that's going away now. But the amount of greatness that's done within it, that's where I said, yeah, you know what, with this position I think I could do better. And yeah, here I am, as I say, is it 15 plus years in the industry, and yeah, getting on with it. Advice for 16 or 17-year-old is, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're all part of growing up and developing. If there's something that you want to do, I'd always say to someone, go and do it, have the experience. If it doesn't work out, at least at that age of time, you've got time to make it right. But there's nothing that's ever wrong. It's whatever's right for you at that point. As long as you're focused, you want to get it, you definitely get it as well.